we get calls all the time from would-be buyers that would like to do a deal, that are looking to grow by acquisition. And when you begin to ask them, so what's your secret sauce? What is it that differentiates you from your competition? Said another way, why would or should an advisor or a business sell themselves to you? What is it you're going to do to help them get there faster, whatever their there is, or grow or hit their goals faster or better or more efficiently than somebody else? It's amazing to me how many people can't answer that question, because just because you want to buy doesn't mean you should buy or you're going to be successful doing so.
Do you want your business to grow faster? Are you open to new and out-of-the-box ways to drive revenues and increase value? How do you imagine the most successful entrepreneurs and business leaders double, triple, or expand their businesses tenfold or more? The answer is Deals. This is a weekly podcast featuring conversations with business owners, executives, and leaders as we reveal behind-the-scenes details that give you, our listeners, the confidence to pursue your own deal-driven growth. On the show, we discuss a huge variety of deals, everything from large, complex mergers and acquisitions to smaller deals that you can do even without significant capital. My name is Corey Kupfer, and I've been supporting deal-driven growth for businesses for 35 years as a successful entrepreneur, professional negotiator, and attorney. My goal is to help you strategize, plan for, find, and complete deals that will help your company grow faster. Welcome to the DealQuest podcast. Let's get started. So this is another best of episode, and we're calling this one the best of RIA women. And I've got to say up front that, frankly, we could have just called this best deal makers in the RIA space, because these three people who happen to be women are amazing deal makers, advocates of deal-driven growth who help RIA firms grow their businesses in different ways. The only reason we highlight it as best of RIA women is that, frankly, we're in an industry, those of us who spend a lot of time in the RIA space, which is a great space, that is still very male-dominated. And it's an area where I think that we need more female and more people of different backgrounds in the space. And I hope that that continues to evolve. So the first excerpt is from Lisa Rapuano's episode. She's the CFO of Facet Wealth, and we had her back on episode 35. And, she is just, they have a phenomenal model at Facet where they will take the clients that don't fit into your ideal profile, whether that's, during a deal, et cetera. Maybe you're less profitable, low clients, and they have a model where they can service those clients really well. So she talks about how they help in various types of deals. So definitely you're going to want to hear that. Mindy Diamo is the second excerpt that we took. She was back on episode 5, really early, of what was then called the Fueling Deals podcast, now DealQuest. And Mindy is really the top, recruiter and deal maker in the industry, and putting teams together with firms and practices, both in the independent space and taking them out of banks, wirehouse, trust companies, and having them merge their practice into existing RIA firms. So super excited that we're highlighting Mindy on this episode. And then finally, we have Marianne Buchanan from RIA Match, the founder of RIA Match, which is an online service that helps match buyers and sellers in the RIA space. And she just had phenomenal additional insight into getting deals done and the value proposition you need and how you merge cultures. So you're going to get a lot of value from these three people, from these three deal makers, specifically talking about the RIA space. But frankly, if you're not in the RIA space, all of the principles they talk about apply to deals in other spaces as well, in any kind of industry. So here is the best of episode with Lisa Rapuano, Mindy Diamo, and Marianne Buchanan.
In a situation where, let's say you're an advisor, you might be starting to think about selling your practice down the road. You might be starting to think about creating a G2, a Generation 2 transition. You're starting to think about your company as more of a business and less of a practice, and you're trying to get your ducks in a row to maximize its value. We're a very good partner at that point of consideration where you start to move toward maximizing the value of your business. Because if you think about Corey, you probably do this all the time, right? You look at an RIA and they got a whole bunch of really small accounts. Their profit margins are going to be lower. The competitive advantage they have with those smaller accounts is going to be smaller because they probably don't give them a ton of service. It's a little bit confusing in their branding because they're talking about how they're an ultra high net worth advisor, but then they got, all these people who are not ultra high net worth, and it can be kind of confusing in the community as to what they really do. There's all kinds of reasons that it can be confusing. So you can enter into a partnership with Bassett, as I described before, where we transition the smaller clients over to us and we pay you, a couple of years before you're thinking about bringing your company to market, because then when you come to market, you have a very attractive asset. Your margins are higher, you've got some capacity, you probably have some organic growth, and there'll be people lining up to buy you at a pretty high multiple. The other circumstance, which is the midst of transaction advisors, that we can also be helpful, is if you're a buyer, for example, and you find an asset that hasn't gone through that pre-work that I just described, but they've got a nice core there that you really want. So they might have, $100 million, and of that 100 million, 80 of it is very attractive to you, fits right into your power alley, culturally great, but you got this $20 million of AUM that is just not at all. You really don't want to take it on. We can be a very attractive partner for coming to help you with that, either prior to you buying it or after you're buying it, one way or during. We can structure it in a variety of ways in order to bring those clients to a home like Bassett that is perfect for them, and to bring those other clients to your asset manager, your investment manager, your wealth manager in a way that fits perfectly with you. So we can get involved in a variety of ways to maximize the value of practices and also give clients their best home.
And both those situations really make sense because, doing as many deals as I do, I often see that come up as an issue where whether it's during the buyer doesn't want a certain segment of the clients because the advisor still has those, and hasn't done anything with them, or they, and I love the other aspect that you brought up where it's one of the ways that a buyer can get prepared for a deal because there's so many, one of the things we always talk to people about when they're thinking about selling their company, whether it's, for succession purposes over time or other reasons or whatever it is that, there's a lot of things you want to do to prep your company to make sure that you're in the best position to attract the most buyers and also get the highest valuation. And there are things around cleaning up financial statements and getting legal things in place and making sure that you have, the better systems you got, securing your key people. And, there's a whole list of things. And this is certainly an important one to, to at least consider adding to the list in advance of well in advance of a transaction. That's great. So we just heard from Lisa Rapuano, who again was on episode 35. So definitely listen to that. Go back, listen to that full episode. As you can see, she really talked about how RIA firms in particular line up to be in the best position to do a deal, right? So whether it's the part of her discussion on how you sort of prune the clients and the business that doesn't align, that's not the most profitable, that doesn't put you in the best position to be an attractive target well in advance of being a seller, or whether you're in a deal and the buyer is not interested in a certain segment of your business, but you, one, don't want to leave those clients in the lurch in terms of when you get the deal done, and then two, you want to get some value for them. So, that was phenomenal from Lisa. It's a great segue into Mindy Diamond because Mindy really talks about the fact that, that everybody says they want to be a buyer and doesn't mean they should be. And she has a whole concept around living the best business life. And it's not just, about the economics. So check out Mindy. Let's take a break from the show for a minute so I can invite you to join our DealQuest community group on Facebook. There, you'll have a chance to engage with other entrepreneurs, business owners, executives, and leaders who are looking to grow, do deals, and make a bigger impact. In addition to the great content and community, you can also register there for our Conversations community and cocktail Zoom calls and the upcoming Deal Den Zoom calls, during which you will have the opportunity to brainstorm and get support with deal-driven growth for your company. Now back to the show.
There are no shortage of buyers in this industry. Everybody fancies themselves a buyer. To be able to, in our business, to be able to purchase an annuitized stream of revenue. So an advisor or a business whose business is mostly all fee-based is, the golden ticket, the home run, and everybody wants to buy them. So we get calls all the time from would-be buyers that would like to do a deal, that are looking to grow by acquisition And when you begin to ask them, so what's your secret sauce? What is it that differentiates you from your competition? Said another way, why would or should an advisor or a business sell themselves to you? What is it you're going to do to help them get there faster, whatever their there is, or grow or hit their goals faster or better or more efficiently than somebody else? It's amazing to me how many people can't answer that question. Because just because you want to buy doesn't mean you should buy or you're going to be successful doing so.
Yeah, and I come across the same thing, Mindy, and it's funny. They, in response to that question, they'll often say to me, "Well, we're a really great place to work, and we really care about our clients." And I always say to them, "Do you think anybody else says any different? That's not a differentiator,
Right. That's the price of admission. That's the threshold, the bottom, the bare requirements, the bare minimum. What's interesting, and what's also interesting worth noting, is that advisor sentiment the seller's sentiment has really changed in the last number of years. So one, it's very much a seller's market. Because everybody fancies themselves a buyer, the competition is really pretty stiff. And most sellers have their choice. And so the key to success for a seller is, again, really clearly know thyself, being self-aware, being honest, and being really rigorous about laying out the drivers. And again, the clearer you are, the more likely you are to sort of come up with the most appropriate short list of options. When I talk about the change in advisor sentiment, I'm talking about sentiment meaning the things that drive a seller. What are the things that makes a seller want to do a deal or want to change the status quo? And when I started the business 20 years ago, the greatest motivator was short-term monetization, looking in some way to take some chips off the table to monetize the business in the short run. And while nobody who's doing a deal wouldn't want to protect their downside or de-risk a transaction, as long as the long-term economics make sense, the big picture, it's much less about short-term upside. And that's incredibly gratifying for me as a deal maker because one, I think it's as it should be. And two, it means ultimately it's better for the clients. If their advisors are doing a deal thinking about what's right overall as opposed to being motivated simply by, the best economics in the short term for the advisor, that's to me is a much better win-win for all constituencies.
Yeah, so Mindy, you used a term earlier, you just in this last couple of minutes, called self-awareness. And, I'm a big believer in that as well. And I sort of tie that to that part of the your bio there, where I said I loved it as a champion for personal growth and a life of congruence. And then you also have this concept of best business life that you talk about. So I'd love you to expand on that and how that affects, how you run your firm, but also how you work with the advisors and clients in helping them make these decisions.
Yeah, I love that question because that's what I'm all about. So whether it be because I'm 56 and, sort of have come to view my own life a little differently than I might have 10, 15 years ago, or whether it be just because I've spent a lifetime professionally counseling people on how they want to live their business life, I think that while certainly the economics of a deal absolutely need to make sense, and if they don't, you're not going to do the deal. But you can never, one, look at any one aspect of a deal in a vacuum, including the economics. So said another way, no deal should ever be made simply because of the economics or only because of the economics. The economics should be one of the reasons why you choose to do a deal and who you choose to do it with. To me, a good deal should start with, or the motivations for the deal should start with, what floats my boat? Who am I and what am I about? What feels good to me? So in our world, if I'm talking to an advisor that works for Merrill Lynch and he talks to me about the fact that he's being pushed to sell bank products and his payout's been cut and he's expected to grow his business or do certain things, bring in certain banking referrals or do certain things for clients that he's doing not necessarily because he thinks it's in the best interest of the client, but more because if he doesn't do those things, he loses X amount of comp. That is the perfect example of incongruence, of where a potential seller or an advisor in my case, a candidate in my case, would look at a situation and say, is this situation really best serving me? is the situation congruent with who I am? Do my values continue to match the values of the firm with whom I work?
So some great stuff from Mindy Diamond. Again, was back on episode 5. Check it out, her full episode. A lot of insights way beyond this little excerpt that we had there. And it's a phenomenal lead into Marianne Buchanan, who was on episode 17, because the discussion I had with Marianne in this excerpt really follows on the discussion that I had with Mindy back on her episode. Getting further into this discussion of the value propositions as a seller, and that it's not all about the money, and what is your differentiator, and, philosophical and cultural alignment. So check out the wisdom here from Marianne Buchanan coming up.
If you were a buyer and you think, I'm going to be a buyer, you should go through sort of, what is my value proposition? What can I offer to a seller that would help their clients first, right? Because it's not all about money. What can I bring to them that would be accretive to their clients? Secondly, what can I bring that's accretive to their staff and their firm and the advisor as a whole? So that's a lot of buyers they have these blind spots about what they have this laundry list of what they want out of an ideal client, firm to buy, right? A seller. And they forget that there are so few sellers and that the buyer needs to look at what can I bring to the seller. Does that answer it?
Yes. No. I love that. And so I am a quote unquote buyer. And I said to you, listen, of course I have a value proposition, man. We're a great place to work, and we really care about our clients.
Right. And so what's the differentiator?
Exactly.
Which advisor, tell me an advisory firm that doesn't say they love their clients, they're there to take care of them. I look at, I work with advisors every day, and I spend time on their websites, and it's just a sea of the sameness, and it's very difficult, right?
Yeah, I sort of brought that up because I'm usually on the other side of that. I'm the one who's hearing, because I asked that same question,
sure.
Always with my clients. Listen, from my point of view, I mean, not that I consult or match people or do the things you do, but I have ongoing clients, right? And they'll often say to me, "Hi, Corey, we'd love to grow. If you know of anybody, just let me know. We're looking to acquire." And I say to them, "Okay, well, do you have a target on who you're looking for? Do you know?" Well, and sometimes it's muddled. Sometimes they know. Sometimes they have an idea. They want to expand a particular geography, or they have a particular type of expertise or whatever that they want to bring in. But a lot of times they're like, no, we'd just like to grow. If you know any good advisors, they don't even have a target. And then also when I said to them, okay, what's your value proposition to them, or why would they come to you? I get what I sort of parroted back to you. We're a great place to work. So.
No, that's right. The advisor needs to have a very clear understanding. The principal has to have a very clear understanding first, before they decide who they want to buy. They have to have a very clear understanding of who they are as a firm. And that sounds easy, but it actually takes some work. Who are we? What is our, what are we to our clients? What are we to our staff, to each other, right? And I know that sounds soft and light and, qualitative, but until you can figure that out, you can't figure out your value proposition. And then you need to decide, as you said, Corey, the who, right? First, the what we are, who do we want to bring on? How do we want to grow? And you must identify, because, again, size, location, you want to look at, is there a match in business model, investment strategy, right? Philosophy and culture. So here's the thing. We all tend to gravitate toward the quantitative. First off, it makes us feel like a science, right? And so we want the quantitative. So we come in and we were like, oh, well, we're going to buy someone for, this EBITDA or this multiple of revenue or whatever, right? And we want this and we want that, all these numbers, this AUM size, that. And they find someone and those numbers line up, because that's what they're focused on, the numbers. And then all of a sudden, the deal blows up, because they never stopped to check, what is our philosophy and culture, and are they aligned? So if those aren't aligned, it doesn't matter how great the numbers are.
Yeah.
Right?
So what are some of the things in that area of philosophy and culture that can conflict, that people should really be focused on?
Well, they want to, let's look at a number of different angles. So from a firm, right? Are you an open door policy firm, or is everything very agenda based, very formal, right? Is everything a structured meeting on your calendar, or can I just walk into an office? Something that simple. Do you hire because of a person's drive and what they can bring to the table, their skill set, Or is really the first thing you look at, did they graduate from a single syllable university? And so is it more pedigree? Those kinds of things don't seem like a big deal, but that can be a very big deal. Are you trying to, there's a challenge right now in our culture in our world, there's about a 14% female participation in the wealth management. So they're like, we're going to get a woman. If we get a woman on here, this will just be great. I'm like, no, actually, you need to have to be the right fit. Look at men and women. And if it happens to be a woman and it's the right fit, that's great. But just to go out and say, I'm going to pick a gender and make it work, right? Oh, this is a woman. She's in the business. We'll pull her in. No, that's the philosophy and culture. Is there a fit? Do you like the person, right? Especially if they're not selling and leaving, right? And because they tend to bring clients in that they get along with, that, if the client is used to a certain, they only deal with pedigree advisors, right? That won't be a good fit. So there's a trickle-down effect.
So I appreciate that phenomenal wisdom from Marianne Buchanan. Again, check out episode 17, which was her full episode. And listen, folks, the wisdom that Lisa, Mindy, and Marianne have brought here, it's just really fundamental to how you get, especially M&A deals done. And again, it applies across industries, even though we're talking about in the RIA space. The RIA space is an interesting space, but, any kind of service business, space that, which is a lot of businesses out there, right? Which is fundamentally a relationship-based business. These factors about, any company should be differentiating themselves, but how you differentiate yourself in a service business, how do you make yourself attractive to buyers, how you align your vision and values with the clients that you have, how do you deal with the clients that you're not aligned with, which is the solution that Lisa's firm, Facet Wealth, provides. So many great inspirations here, and I really appreciate those amazing women from the RIA industry being on the, what was the Fueling Deals podcast. Now it's the DealQuest podcast. And definitely check them out. Again, Lisa Rapuano, episode 35, Mindy Diamond, episode 5, Marianne Buchanan, episode 17. Thanks to all of them for being on. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Thank you for joining me on this episode of DealQuest, where we help you understand how deal-driven growth can be your ticket to freedom. You can be a friend of the show by leaving a review on the Good Pods app, podchaser.com, or any major podcast player. Every review helps the show reach more listeners. If you're ready to take your deal making to the next level by becoming a master negotiator, head over to Amazon or Audible and grab a copy of my best-selling book, Authentic Negotiating. Then connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know your thoughts. I'm Corey Kupfer. Until next week, wishing you the freedom and financial prosperity that I know your DealQuest will bring.